Shall we start, sir?
Yes, we can start. Yes.
Thank you. A very warm welcome to all of you in the national webinar on NAAC Accreditation of Ayurved Colleges, organized by Ayurved Teacher Association India in collaboration with Imports, who is pioneer and renowned edtech company. Myself, Dr. Shilpa Rahul Revle, ATA member and regional coordinator for Western Maharashtra. In today's third and last day of this national webinar, I warmly welcome the President of ATA of India, Dr. Rahul Suryavanshi sir, Secretary of ATA of India, Dr. Manoj Chaudhary sir, Vice President ATA India, Dr. Nitin Sandurkar sir. I wholeheartedly welcome all the respected national executives and members of Ayurveda Teacher Association of India who have been given their contribution from the various states of India. I warmly welcome Mr. Ajay Bhagwat, Director of Imports India Private Limited. Respected colleagues and friends, since last 2 days from 22 March onwards, we all are virtually together for this very informative and very interactive webinar. I feel very proud to share that Ayurveda Teacher Association India, which is the organization by the teacher and for the teacher, was the first teacher organization from Ayurveda faculty to take webinar on the topic of the NAAC for the upgradation of the fellow teachers from the same faculty. On 22nd March, we had inauguratory speech by respected Dr. Arun Sankar sir, Honorable former Vice Chancellor of Maharashtra University of Health Sciences, Nashik, who gave us thorough vision of NAAC and sensitized all the participants about the essentiality and importance of NAAC assessment. Here I want to state that MUHS Nashik in 2017 first introduces impact assessment for all the Ayurveda colleges, and then slowly it is shifted to NAAC assessment. This slow and swiftly shifting from impact to NAAC proved to be a warm-up exercise for all the Ayurveda colleges to prepare themselves for the forthcoming and inevitable NAAC assessment. Inaugural speech and guidance was followed by first session of this webinar series. Speaker for that session was respected Dr. Manjit Singh sir, an eminent educationist. His topic was NAAC Accreditation Awareness for Ayurveda Colleges, in which sir has explained thoroughly the process of NAAC based on revised accredited framework. On 23rd March, Mr. Ajay Bhagwat, Director of Imports India, gave us role of ICT in achieving academic excellence, in which Mr. Bhagwat explains how ICT plays key role in management of data for NAAC and how ICT, when used appropriately, can promote the shift to a learner-centered environment. These both sessions was very interactive and informative, and we received a very good feedback from participants about these two last sessions. So friends, today on 24th March, we had with us Mr. Ajay Bhagwat, Director of Imports India Private Limited, as a resource person. His topic of discussion is pedagogy of outcome-based education. Dear friends, as we all know, clarity is important over years of schooling and when team teaching is involved particularly. The focus on outcomes creates a clear expectations on what need to be accomplished by the end of the course. Student will understand what is expected of them and teachers will know what they need to teach during the course. Outcome-based education is the base of our national education policy introduced by Honorable Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi ji. So to understand this term is very important, and to throw light on this topic, we have with us respected speaker Mr. Ajay Bhagwat, Director of Imports India Private Limited. I request Mr. Ajay Bhagwat sir to share his view on this topic. Over to you, Mr. Bhagwat sir.
Thank you so much for the warm and warm welcome. And once again, welcome everyone. Good afternoon to all of you. I'm going to share my screen in a second. Our topic for the day is outcomes-based education, and it's going to be uh, a very interesting discussion today. We will have enough time, reserved for a discussion on the questions that you would be encouraged to ask, and it will be our privilege to respond to your questions. So please feel free to ask your questions today. I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah.
I hope it is visible to all of you.
Yes. It's visible, sir.
Yes. I'm pretty sure that you are familiar with this shlok, right? Hita hitam sukham dukkham ayu tasya hita hita. That's the definition of Ayurved, and we are going to draw some analogies from this shlok, this meaning of Ayurved, into our discussion of the day today. Quite a few of you have now already seen this forum. You imparts faculty commons. It is dedicated to outcomes-based education, and if you want to know more about outcomes-based education, how it is being practiced in other domains and disciplines of higher education, you are encouraged to visit this YouTube channel. You will always find some case studies presented by some teachers around the globe, talking about their case studies, best practices, their observations, right, about how outcomes-based education is being implemented by them, how it is helping them, etc. So there are a few videos already that are there. Please feel free to access those. This is the starting point of our discussion about outcomes-based education. I believe that our ancient Indian philosophers have captured this very well. It says that this shlok says that a student gets a quarter of knowledge from his or her teacher, a quarter by his or her own intelligence, a quarter from his or her fellow students, and a quarter in due course of time. So what it means is that classroom teaching has its own advantages, requirements, needs, but it has a limited, it has to have a limited purpose, and its scope also has to be limited to a certain extent through, as kind of is expressed here. And the quarter by his or her own intelligence means swadhyay, right? It is actually self-study, and there has to be enough opportunities, obviously, for the students to self-learn. And here the flipped classroom comes in picture a lot. The third segment of this shlok is learning from fellow students. So this is about social learning, group activities, some kind of projects where students come together and learn from each other. So there should be enough opportunities for the students to come into group and do something together, and that is called as social learning. And the fourth segment of this shlok is in the due course of the time, learning happens, and this is nothing but lifelong learning. And you would find many program level objectives written in reference to this shlok. It is very interesting, actually. So 1 hour of the day of this webinar is going to be little less for a discussion on a topic like this. But so at times I will swift through quickly through some of the topics, and some of the topics we will have to go into deeper because those are very interesting. areas of outcomes-based education. And we can continue to interact later on whenever we find some time. So here, the most important difference in the terminology used in outcomes-based education and generally being used by us is that we have to scrap calling Ayurveda as a course. It is a program in the terminology used in outcomes-based education, and the subjects in a program like Ayurveda will be called as courses. So when we talk about program level outcomes, those are at the level of Ayurveda as a program. And when we talk about course level outcomes, it is at the level of a subject. Outcomes of the education are what the student should be able to do at the end of the program, course, and an instructional unit. And it is an approach to education in which decision about the curriculum are driven by the exit learning outcomes that the student should display at the end of the program. Exit learning outcomes are the program outcomes. There could be 10, 15, 20 different program outcomes which are relevant for the students of Ayurveda, and we have to ultimately align all the teaching and learning process to help the students achieve those desired characteristics at the end of the program or by the end of the program. And hence the decisions to be taken about various aspects of teaching learning. It could be the content of the course, it could be the technology to deliver the courses, it may be about the assessments to be designed, or it could be the teaching process, teaching aids, the research done by the teachers, educational achievements of the teachers also come in picture to achieve the overall objective of this program. And hence the many decisions about the curriculum and the delivery mechanism comes in picture when we talk about outcomes-based education. OB is about continuous improvement of outcomes, that are to be outcomes at the end of outcomes to be achieved by the students by end of the program. So what I'm going to do here onwards is going to take an approach of case study, and I would like everyone to think about they being responsible for designing a completely new program. Obviously there is already a program designed to teach Ayurveda to the students, but imagine that you are designing a postgraduate program from the scratch. It did not exist in the past. Now you are kind of coming out with some ideas and you want a post-graduation program to be designed, and then we will have to think about what will you do to accomplish this goal. So first of all, you have to think about what graduate attributes to be considered. So these are the steps involved in designing this whole program, new program. And let us look at these steps involved in that, and probably that will give you a very well kind of idea about how outcomes-based education is to be implemented when you are going to do it from the scratch. So unless and until you look at outcomes-based education from the perspective of a designer, you will not be able to really see the depth it has. And when it comes to implementing at your end, probably the program of Ayurveda is already designed by somebody, right? But then it will start giving you, it will start showing you the gaps in the thought process that you have about designing a program and the existing program. You'll be able to find those gaps, and then it will help you to mitigate those gaps, close those gaps as soon as possible. So that's the purpose of this case study approach and driving this discussion, right now in this webinar. So the graduate attributes are the set of individually accessible outcomes rather, that are components indicative of the graduate's potential to acquire competence to practice at the appropriate level. Very powerful definition. And the graduate attributes are exemplars of the attributes expected of graduates from an accredited program. That's the definition of graduate attributes. These are primarily divided into three categories: knowledge, skill, and attitude. There is a purpose behind it. There is a very definite purpose of dividing these graduate attributes in these three categories: knowledge, skill, and attitude. We are going to look at this, what these categories are and what these outcomes are. However, when you are thinking about your graduate, postgraduate program that you are going to design from the scratch, you have to think about what outcomes at the program level you will have to pick out of this. You may pick the whole set, or you may take part of this, and you may want to add something missing according to you in this set. You will add your own designed program outcomes, and then you will come out with your own set of program outcomes. So this is an example of engineering UG program, but here, just to kind of give you the context, in 4-year engineering program may have, let's say 12 program outcomes, but a postgraduate management program may have only 5 program outcomes. A 3 years masters in computer application may have somewhere like another set of 12 outcomes. So it depends on the program, the nature, discipline of the program, and depending upon the designer's perspective and the purpose for which the program is designed, a right set of graduate attributes will be picked up. And if something is to be added on top of what is already taken out of graduate attributes, you may add some more graduate attributes. And once you create your own set of the graduate attributes which is applicable to your program, then onwards these graduate attributes are called as program outcomes. So now onwards we will stop calling these outcomes as graduate attributes. We will start calling them as program outcomes, POs. So that's the fundamental shift that is happening here in the first stage. We have completed the first step now. Now we are moving toward the second step. Now the next step is to think about if my students have to achieve the program outcomes chosen by me, what courses I may have to select in each term, first to last term, so that these courses will help students to achieve those program outcomes. So let's say you have, it's a 2 years, let's say post-graduation program, and you have 4 terms, and in each term, let's say you are considering 4 to 5 courses to be delivered, and maybe less, maybe more. It entirely depends on the way you want to design it. And then you may have to then think about how progressively the students will achieve the program outcomes. Obviously, the program outcomes which require some advanced level of knowledge, it will not have to be, cannot be covered in the first semester, because in the first semester typically you would deliver some foundational knowledge about the program, and then you progressively increase the complexity and advance those. You will pick up the advanced level courses in the later stages of the program, right? So based on that, you will have to organize these courses such a way that they kind of take the students from foundational level knowledge to the complex level, advanced level knowledge, right? So this is how you will organize your courses. You will have to pick and choose from the bank of the course. You may have 30, 40 different courses as a bank, which you believe, which are suggested by some ex alumni or some kind of, other Ayurved practitioners and some other subject matter experts associated with you, who is a think tank, and this think tank has given you a kind of their recommendations of so many courses must be covered in your program, and then based on these recommendations you are now thinking about which one of these courses are most applicable to my program. So let's say this is the right set according to you, is chosen by you. And now once you do this, you will start thinking about now uh, the next step of involved in this top down approach, right? Is it, we are taking steps from top to the bottom, right? So first of all, we decided what our program outcomes are, right? Then we decided what courses should be taken up, and then we have to think about the course outcomes to be achieved by the students when they finish each course in progressively, and those outcomes have to be measured by the teachers. How teachers will measure it? There will be some assessments. There could be formative assessments or summative assessment, which will help the teacher to measure whether or not students are achieving those course level outcomes. And the questions asked in in these assessments have to be designed by looking at the cognitive process of the students to be achieved, and that is sometimes called as Bloom's taxonomy, and in the field of health sciences education it is called as Miller's scale. The purpose is kind of same. However, depending upon what you think is the best for your program, you can pick the right cognitive process for your questions designing, and this will complete the top-down design of the program. This is outcomes-based education. So, once you are done with your top-down kind of blueprint of your program in this fashion, now we have to go back and then think about the details of everything. So categories of the PO, I refer this particular aspect of the program outcomes, right? Program outcomes are having three categories: knowledge, skill, and attitude, right? Right from the graduate attributes, we saw the categorization. So when we pick and choose the applicable graduate attributes for our program, naturally these graduate attributes, which are now being called as program outcomes, will inherit the properties from the groups categories that you had seen there, right? So now let's start looking at the details of why there are three categories. This has got relationship with knowledge dimensions. There are four knowledge dimensions. The first is factual, the basic elements the student should know about something. Conceptual could be the interrelationships between the basic elements. Procedural, how to do something, methods, skills, and techniques. And metacognitive, how individuals act and especially how they interact with others. This is extremely important. In MBBS, they have started a course called EdCom, and that is to deal with situations like preparing the students to handle very difficult situations about how to communicate with the patient's relatives when the patient is kind of facing some severe health related issues. How will you communicate it to the relatives of the patient? The right choice of words, the tone, everything becomes very important, and that is something called as how you are interacting with others, how to communicate. And this is actually this emotional intelligence that is required there is all about the attitude category of the program outcomes. But if you look at the knowledge dimensions on your left side, factual, conceptual, and procedural, it would be very interesting if you start relating this with your courses and see whether you are able to relate these terms with your courses. Factual, do you find any basic elements the student should know in your course? Do you find any conceptual, the interrelationships between the basic elements that you are teaching? Procedures, obviously, it is everywhere, right? In the field of Ayurved program, obviously, there are quite a few things which are related with procedural knowledge. So the program outcomes will have obviously the impact of these knowledge dimensions. So if you take an example of knowledge level program outcome, understand the nature and the basic concepts of cell biology, biochemistry, taxonomy, and ecology. This could be a very, this program outcome addresses factual and conceptual knowledge. But if you look at an example of skill and procedural level program outcome, you can say modern tool usage, create, select, apply appropriate techniques, resources, and modern tools, right? Here, this is engineering specific, but you can always relate the same with even the program of Ayurved. And attitude, ability to lead themselves and other in the achievement of organizational goals, contributing effectively to a team environment. These are the examples of attitude level program outcomes. So collectively, we are making sure that my program will deliver these abilities, these skills, fundamental knowledge, right, and a right mental attitude to the students when they finish my program. So that's why I have to make sure that I have addressed all these categories of the program outcomes when I'm designing my new program. Any questions so far? Let me know if there are any questions so far. Okay. So quickly, these are the further, details of what these knowledge dimensions are, and you can actually obviously take a look at that later as well, because this is very commonly available on the web also. But you can just keep these terms in mind, and please search more information on the web later on if you want to go in deep. But essentially, these are the 4 knowledge categories which are involved into our day-to-day teaching learning processes. Those are there everywhere. So now if you go back to your course and try to find out whether you can see these knowledge dimensions in your course, you will find some interesting insights. So you look at the units, it may be larger topics, the chunk of the knowledge that you are delivering according to your organization of the knowledge in the textbook. You may or may basically, and then you check whether you have any further relationship with these topics with the knowledge dimensions like this. So you may find that in topic 1 I am covering factual and conceptual knowledge, and then likewise there could be some groups that you will find in each topic. So as a program designer, you will have to think about each course in this manner. Think about what topics are being covered, what knowledge dimensions in each course is covering, and then use this model for taking the next step. So that this model is going to help you design the course outcomes, and as well as design the assignment questions very, very systematically. So we are going towards that now, step by step. Here, the knowledge blocks that you have identified, maybe more than 30, 40, 50 various knowledge dimensions associated with these units or the topics which are covered in your courses. So once you finish identifying the knowledge dimensions, you may try to group those together. In case it is possible and logically grouping them. And for that, I'm using a concept called grouping of knowledge blocks. So you can create knowledge blocks which are logically assembled knowledge dimensions. Those could be mix of knowledge dimensions. Right? You don't have to actually essentially depend on topic only. You can cross the topic boundaries also and take some factual concept related, factual knowledge dimension related topics together, bring those together and give a nice label to them. Let's say introduction to databases or introduction to cardiovascular physiology, right? That could be one name of that knowledge block. And then you can kind of, you may come up with some 10 to 15 such knowledge blocks. That's perfectly all right. So this is one step now forward towards the designing of the course outcomes, and then subsequently the questions to be asked in the assessments. Any questions so far?
No, sir, you are explaining it very nicely and stepwise. So all steps are very clear.
Thank you. Now, the next step is now thinking about knowledge dimensions and the cognitive process and the assessment. Now you can see now cognitive process is coming in picture now here, because now so far we talked about the knowledge to be delivered by teaching the students as per the courses designed by me as a program designer. So far we talked about what is to be delivered to the students. Now we have to start thinking about how the students will learn it. So now we are talking about learning process. And when it comes to learning process, we have to start thinking about cognitive process, because that is the way students are going to absorb the knowledge step by step. And that is the process that we are going to talk about now. It becomes very important discussion, because unless and until we think about how the students will learn, we will not be able to design the course level outcomes. We will not be able to design the questions. And that's why knowledge dimensions and the cognitive process go hand in hand together. This is how it happens. So teacher teaches the knowledge. There could be a dimension like this, and the student learns the knowledge. And these are the agreed process of cognitive process. It is also called as Bloom's taxonomy. And if you want to use Miller scale, you can also use Miller scale, which has got 4 levels only. In ancient Indian philosophers consider there are 8 steps. I'll also show you what those 8 steps are. These are the ones. श्रवण करने की इच्छा, प्रत्यक्ष में श्रवण करना, ग्रहण करना, स्मरण में रखना, तर्क वितर्क, सिद्धांत निश्चय, अर्थ ज्ञान तथा तत्व ज्ञान, ये बुद्धि के 8 अंग है. In my opinion, this is the foundation for modern philosophers, and they have come up with Bloom's taxonomy or Miller scale, but everything is here. Our ancient philosophers think that there are 8 steps involved into cognitive process. This is an example of Miller scale. Cognition and behavior. Knows how, shows how, and does. This is accepted pyramid in the field of medical education. They use Miller scale there. And you may either use Miller scale or this cognitive process of six steps, or go back to our ancient Indian philosophers, whichever way works for you. As a program designer, it is your prerogative, so you can stick to the most important cognitive process you believe should be considered for your program. Obviously, we can't go in deeper in each of these, but it's logically you'll quickly understand what is remember, what is understand, what is apply, what is analyze, what is evaluate and create. These are the 6 steps. So when you teach something to the students, the teacher has to ask a question to see whether the students have understood it. I mean, we use this word understood in generally. However, it has a deeper meaning. We want to see how far in their understanding the students have gone, right? And this how far is very important. How far means whether they are able to remember only, or they are able to demonstrate understanding of facts and ideas by organizing, comparing, dash, dash, dash. There are other important steps there. The third could be, are they able to apply something to solve some problems in new situations by applying acquired knowledge, facts, and techniques. If they are taught some viral infection of certain nature, are they able to use that knowledge in other type of viral infection? That's the application. Then examine and break information into parts by identifying motives and causes. Evaluation is about presenting and defending opinions by making judgments about information and validity of ideas. So step by step, students are going from lower order thinking skills to higher order thinking skills. The create means compile information together in a different way by combining elements in new patterns or proposing alternative solutions. That means you are kind of considered to be guru, creator, thinker, right? That's the kind of level. Students can go to that level, by the way, and there are quite a few opportunities given to the students, in even today's higher educational system. Such opportunities exist for the students to excel. It's not only related for PhD students, but also for undergraduate students. Such opportunities exist. So when we, as a teachers, going to ask a question, this question should be framed such a way that it is targeting to see something that you have predetermined already. It has to be by design, and based on that you have to ask the question. So if you are teaching factual knowledge, you may want to check whether how students have understood it. Understood it means they have to demonstrate what they have understood. So they may want to rephrase the concept that they have learned in their own language, and that means that they have able to not only remember that, but they have understood it. That's the reason they are able to play around with the words to be chosen to explain it to you. But some of the students may hardly be able to remember, maybe everything partially or nothing, but some of them will be able to demonstrate the understanding little better. Some of them will be extremely good. So within this zone of remember, understand, you will find some variations. If you are teaching conceptual knowledge, you may want to take them to apply level. Are they able to apply it? So that's the kind of decision the program designer has to take, to think this is the kind of decision in the sense how this course is going to fulfill the requirement of the program outcomes, right? If this course is supposed to deliver, let's say, characteristics defined in PO 2 and 3, then naturally I have to make sure that the students are taken to a particular level of cognition. Otherwise, those POs cannot be achieved. If the POs belong to skill category, to procedural knowledge, then naturally they have to apply it. And that's the decision to be taken by the program designer when they start thinking about designing questions in the assessments. Now, you may think that this is something new, but I will argue that this is not at all new. Think of a question of 4 marks, subjective question, and your 60 students or 150 students have answered it. When you have a heap of answer sheets in front of you, you are evaluating the answers given by the student for this 4 marks question. You will assign the marks either 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, maybe half also. But what makes you to do that? What makes you to think about and take a decision about how many marks to be assigned? You actually are using the same technique of cognitive process. It is nothing but the mental rubric that you have in your memory that runs all the time, and based on that you give the marks. And actually you are nothing but very subconsciously, referring to the cognitive process. You will assign 0 marks because you will see that explanation shows very limited understanding. If the understanding improves, you will start giving more marks. It is nothing but the cognitive process, right? So it is not at all new. It's there. It happens all the time. What is different? Different is analysis. Analysis of how many students did you find out of 150 in the category of 0, 1, 2, or 4. And that's different here. Because we have to drive continuous improvement. And hence, we have to analyze. And obviously, you want more and more students to be on the left side. So if there is a target given here, then I have to make sure that, let's say there are 5% students only in this category, not more than that. But actually there are 12.3% students here. This target was 20%, but there are only 31% students there. So how do I push more students in this category? How should I move some of the students in this category, and likewise so on and so forth? That is the continuous improvement. And that is the difference between the traditional process and the outcomes-based education process. So these targets have to be defined by the program design. This is not the responsibility of teachers. Teachers' responsibility is to analyze and report what is the observation. But the program designer has to think about what is the expected percentage of the students in each of these such categories. So that's about the continuous improvement of outcome-based education. Now, if you look at what is a course outcome, course outcomes are the outcomes to be achieved by the students at the end of each course, right? So I'm coming back to the model that we just talked about, the knowledge dimensions and the knowledge blocks, right? So we have designed these knowledge blocks. Now we have to identify desired level of cognition. Now, since we have done the discussion about what is the desired level of cognition, why it has to be thought about by the program designer, is because we have to think about what is the relationship of this course with the program outcomes. What is the category of the program outcomes this course is going to help students achieve? And if the category of the program outcomes is, let's say, knowledge, then naturally I have to limit the desired cognition level, maybe up to maximum up to apply. But if it is procedural level program outcomes, I have to extend the expectation further towards apply, analyze, and even evaluate also at times. So based on that, I will take a call. How how am I going to assess them? So let's say I come out with this desired level of cognition: understand, apply, analyze, evaluate. That gives me a very solid foundation for designing the course outcomes. And for that, we have to take one more step forward. Now, I have shown you the relationship between the knowledge dimension and the cognitive process dimension. As I mentioned to you, these two elements go hand in hand. Let's arrange the knowledge dimensions on y-axis and cognitive process dimension on x-axis, as shown here. This is a 3D picture, right? And think about the first building knowledge block, which was factual, and desired level of cognition, understand. So I'm picking a factual here and picking understand here. So what do I find? I find some keywords here, which are the guiding principles to me to think about what kind of questions I should ask. And hence, this is called as keyword. This keyword, I'm going to pick and choose. This is there will be a set of keywords there: explain, infer, and I have to pick the right keyword out of this junction here and put it in front of understand. That this is a knowledge block. This is a desired level of cognition, and I am going to use infer, for example, for the assessment of the students. That's the keyword. Then if I'm going to look at the factual and apply, I'll have another set of keywords there. So likewise, I will see conceptual apply, it has got a different set of keywords. Conceptual and analyze has different set of keywords. So this is how actually I will pick and choose the right keywords for me and come out with extended model of my kind of analysis of my each course. Now I have got action verbs, right? So now I am one step closer to designing of course outcomes. So in the course outcomes, I will require action verbs and the desired level of cognition. These are the two important components of a course outcome statement. Course outcome statement starts with an action, then it has to address the knowledge block, which is going to be addressed by the course outcome. Then the conditions, if any, to be demonstrated by the students, and if there is any criteria that is further to be defined by you. And then if the student is able to demonstrate the abilities, the understanding of the topic that you are covering, teaching, then you can say that the student is said to have achieved the desired course outcome. I hope that this is clear, right? And there could be multiple such course outcome statements, and those could be equivalent to the number of knowledge blocks that you will design. Each knowledge block will have to have at least one course outcome. There could be multiple course outcomes for each knowledge block, but at least one should be there, right? So you will have enough course outcomes designed by you, and they will look like this: describe general taxonomic rules on animal classification. So you can easily see how this technique is used to design course outcomes like this. So there are some examples here, and there are some examples of incorrectly designed course outcomes also. So since this is getting recorded, you can always take a look at these examples later on. So this is actually a little high level discussion, so I'm skipping this, not relevant from the perspective of the OB discussion that we are having right now. So I'm going to the next important step, that is framing questions and assignment. Right now we have designed the course outcomes, and the next final step is to designing the assessments and the questions. So think about the program that you are designing. Think about the courses chosen by you, and you have foundational level courses arranged in the first term, and progressively you are moving towards the difficulty level, advanced level. So naturally, it is also reflecting the way you are delivering the knowledge to the students: factual, conceptual, procedural, metacognitive. Progressively, it will become complex. So initially, your assessments will have impact of the simpler concepts or foundational concepts that you are teaching, right? So your questions may have more of describe, define, identify, explain. But as the complexity goes further, you have to add different types of questions: plan, design, organize, anticipate, engage, have insight, or whether or not the student is taking interest. These are different. So the affective domain or attitude level question are a little different. I'm coming to that immediately after we finish the discussion about cognitive domain and psychomotor domain, or knowledge or skill level knowledge, that we are delivering, knowledge dimensions we are delivering. The assessments will have impact of the knowledge levels, dimensions that you will be delivering in the initial period. And when the difficulty level adds up, uh, there will be some influence of the affective domain, the attitude level assessments, that will start coming in picture. But there is a fundamental difference in between the assessments conducted for knowledge and skill category of the program outcomes, right? But and between the attitude or affective domain level assessments. The first two categories, teachers will have to obviously assess the students' answers, observe them, doing some practicals in the lab, and how the student is measuring blood pressure. If there are 10 steps to be observed by the teacher, how many steps are correctly taken by the teacher, student? And then you are then observing it and kind of grading the performance. If you believe that the steps are missing, major steps are missing, you are failing the student, you're asking to repeat the procedure again, and certain chances are given, maybe, right? I am kind of guessing your the process assessment mechanism or the process in Ayurved. But it could be like this. And so essentially you are kind of grading the students' performance and assigning them some marks. But in the case of affective domain attitude, you are not supposed to give any marks. It is not to be looked at from the perspective of assigning some marks. We have to change ourselves, our thinking a lot here when we are thinking about attitude level related assessments. So if, let's say, you are asking a question about conducting a blood donation camp and asking the student, how many of you are going to volunteer and participate in organizing this event? So the students who raise their hand and come forward are showing some interest. They are ready to volunteer, right? Are you going to give them full marks and 0 marks to the others who are not participating? Then that is the incorrect way of assessment. Here, when you are asking that question in the classroom, and when certain students are coming forward, that's fine. They are showing interest. They are volunteering. What others are doing there? They have learned a lesson already. That hey, when such a situation is being tossed in front of me, I could not take quick decision. I did not want to participate. I did not want to volunteer. Making them realize this itself is the purpose of the assessment of that question. That's it. And this self-realization, self-assessment, creating that thought in their mind is the success of an assessment related to attitude. Now this opportunity is gone. When you throw another opportunity in which they were to volunteer, show interest, probably a different set of students will come forward this time. And that is the win. That's what something that a teacher has achieved. So it's not about grading them, penalizing them. It is about creating the sense of self-assessment. That's the purpose of attitude level assessments. And if you don't have such assessments, it's time to think about creating such assessments more frequently so that all the students will be able to participate in such activities. So I'm going to now actually wrap up our discussion by showing you, how this whole model helps you go from knowledge dimensions, cognitive process, course outcome designing, assessments, and question designing. This is the final output of this model that could be that should be done that should be achieved for each course of your program. So if you are designing a new program which has got, let's say, 15 courses, you should come out with 15 such models, and that will give you a very comprehensive understanding of how exactly your students are going to achieve the program level outcomes which you believe should be achieved by the students. So this is the responsibility of the person who is program designer. Naturally, this is the kind of work done by the affiliating universities, and they are the ones who should take the onus of coming out with such a top-down approach of outcomes-based education and the program designing. And only then it is you will find that the NAAC accreditation process defined there is implemented in its true essence. They actually want this to happen at the university level. In the criteria 1, curricular aspects, they have started hinting that POs, PSOs, and the course outcomes have to be designed. However, they have not given clear guidelines about how it should be done. And that is the reason I wanted to share some of these ideas today with you all, and debate with you whether this makes sense to you. Right? I'm now open for questions, if any. And Dr. Manjit Singh ji also is here today. He also will help me, support me to address questions which requires an educator's experience.
Thank you. It was a very good presentation and it was educative for me as well.
My
I mean, one can't say that you are learned anything. You always learning is a continuous process, and we
yes.
keep learning every time, everywhere, and it goes on. That's what your fourth part of this Sanskrit shloka, which you started with, also said the same thing.
Thank you, sir, for your kind appreciation. So since we crossed actually I think we have done well with respect to the time available to us, 1 hour. And now I will request the organizers to take the next step. If there are no questions, we can conclude the session and this series
I think there was a question on the chat from Jyoti Gawali, right? It was almost to everyone, that's open chat, right? During designing the course, how to differentiate between the goal and objective of the course? Objective mean the outcome of the course, and it is a course outcomes. How to You see, it's basically the perspective from which whether you have goal and outcome, they are defined, right? From the learner perspective, it is the outcome, and from the teacher's perspective, it is the goal. So that's the difference. But otherwise, uh, during designing the course, right, you are just laying down your what are the uh, objectives of the course, and then once you are assessing it, it becomes what are the outcomes which you have really assessed, which they have been able to attain or not to attain.
Mhm. Right. So I'm stopping the sharing, and I'll take a look at whether there are any questions on the YouTube. Sounds good. I think there are no questions. Thank you so much, Dr. Revle and Dr. Gauri, to appreciate this presentation. Over to you. I think
Dr. Mehta, Bhargav Mehta.
Dr. Bhargav Mehta, over to you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Ajay, you want to share some details, contact details?
Yes. So actually, thank you for reminding that, sir. I would love to share with you the contact details of Dr. Manjit Singh ji and myself. So you can actually reach out to me in case you are located in the North India, Maharashtra, Goa, and North India, NCR, Northeast India. Please connect with me. If you are located in South India, Karnataka, Andhra, Telangana, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu, you can connect with my colleague MV Kalidas for questions, if any, about the technology platforms of imports. And then we have our channel partner located in Chandigarh. If you are located in Punjab, Haryana, Uttarakhand, Himachal, Jammu, Kashmir, and Ladakh, please get in touch with Mr. Tirlochan ji. And these are the contact details there. Sounds good. Thank you so much. That's it from my end, sir.
Hello, Bhargav sir.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Bhargav Mehta.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Please continue, sir. Take over.
Thank you very much. Thank, yes, yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Rahul Suryavanshi, sir. I have been given a duty of for Thanksgiving speech. So first and foremost, I would like to thank Shri Ajay Bhagwat, sir, Director of Import India Private Limited, Pune. Second one, I would like to thank Professor Dr. Manjit Singh, sir, Head of Education, Accreditation Division, TRAM System, Chandigarh. Also, after that, I would like to thank the organizer. Firstly, Dr. Rahul Suryavanshi, sir, President, Ayurved Teacher Association. Our dynamic secretary, sir, there is Dr. Manoj Chaudhary, sir, Secretary, Ayurved Teacher Association. Dr. Nitin Chandorkar, sir, Vice President, Ayurved Teacher Association. Along with that, I would like to thank some of our national executive members also. That is Dr. Anand Madgundi, sir, Treasurer. Dr. Arun Dudhumal, sir, Working President. Dr. Pradeep Jonthale, sir. Dr. Sachin Chandalia, sir. Dr. Sandeep Jadhav, sir. Dr. Rameshwar Pawar sir, President Maharashtra ATA, Dr. Abhijit Patil sir, President Gujarat ATA, Dr. Ravi Srivastava sir, President Madhya Pradesh ATA, Dr. Binoy Bhaskaran sir, President Kerala ATA, Dr. PC Singla sorry for the interference. Dr. Ankit Gupta sir, Dr. Mahesh Gupta sir, Uttar Pradesh ATA, Dr. Kalonjit Singh Ahuja, Uttarakhand ATA, Dr. Rakesh Salve sir, Gujarat ATA, Dr. Vishnu Prasad Sharma sir, Assam ATA, and Dr. Deepak Dobade for sharing media publicity and coordinator. At the end, I would also like to share some of our social media handles. That is of first and foremost our email ID. That is ayurveda.teachers.association@gmail.com. We have got very good website also where all the members can see the details of our association. That is ayurteassociation.org.in. We also have our YouTube channel, which is by the name of Ayurveda Teacher Association, where we can see all the details of association. And at the end, I would like to urge all the members who have been participating in this seminar in a large extent. I would like to request all of them to become the life member of Ayurveda Teacher Association. Ayurveda Teacher Association is the only pan-India association which has been working for the upliftment of the teachers, for the solving various problems of the teaching fraternity. So I would like to request all of them to become life member and serve the nation. Thank you very much, Dr. Rahul Suryavanshi sir, for giving me opportunity. Now I am Vice President of Gujarat Ayurveda Teacher Association, and presently I have been working as an assistant professor in Kumar Bhutya Department, RK University, Rajkot, Gujarat. Thank you very much, all the viewers and all the participants also who have been attending this very fruitful and knowledgeable webinar since last 2 to 3 days. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you. Over to Dr. Bhagwat sir. Ajay Bhagwat sir.
Yes, sir. So yes, actually, I'm done with the presentation. I would also like to thank all of you, the organizers of Ayurved the Teachers Association of India. It is our pleasure. My Dr. Manjeet Singh ji also agreed to join us for all the three webinars, and he could spare the time because he believed that this is a very important interaction with all of you. And
Bhagwat sir, I want to say one thing, that whether we are going to organize this session physically in coming next 2-3 months.
So Dr. Manjeet Singh ji would like to take this question.
Yeah, it could be possible, and but then that is for the individual colleges. It could be undertaken, but only thing is one has to always watch this tiny friend of ours, the corona, right?
Yeah, after 2-3 months, sir. After 2-3 months.
Yeah. But even otherwise, online, in case, because what happens is, only thing that you don't see the facial expressions of the audience, but at least the person who is presenting can be on the video. His expressions could be seen, and question answers taken equally well. Because even now, what has happened is, that's one thing which this pandemic has taught everybody, that even children are learning from their teachers, right? In a good way, this thing online learning. So I think in the meantime, certain, just webinars could be organized for the faculty, and sharing or whatever we know would be our pleasure. Okay, so we'll be honored to share whatever we know, whatever little we have, knowledge we have. we want to share, because by sharing your knowledge doesn't go down, it only increases. And so this is something which we will love to do it actually. Okay. Dr. Rahul, was it your question? Does it answer that particular part? Otherwise, we can always talk about it off this thing.
Hello.
Yeah. Can you hear
Yeah,
me?
yeah. We organize college-wise or in group.
Yeah, you in a
After
group
2-3
also,
months,
so
we will
college-wise.
think on that. After 2-3 months, we will think on that as per the amount
Yeah,
of teachers and colleges we will organize.
very true, very true. As and when required, we are available, and we would love to share.
Yeah. Thank you, sir, Dr. Manjit sir, Dr. Ajay Bhagwat sir. Very good presentations here, and I think our Ayurved teachers learn more from these presentations.
My pleasure, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I wish you all the best for the implementation of new education policy, as well as I wish you the best for your NAAC accreditations that every college will have to undergo in the near future.
And best of Arogyata.
Both of
Best of Arogyata.
Yes, sir. Bye bye. Take care. I'm closing this session now.
Okay.